Hey guys, it's TK. It's time for another anime review, and today we're going to be going over Yakitate, Japan. Now, for those of you that's not familiar with this series, it revolves around Azuma Kazuma, who is a young and upcoming baker. Yes, the whole anime is about nothing but making bread. Now, at first, whenever I first heard of it, I was thinking like, okay, this is just gonna be crap. But actually, once I got started watching it, and they actually make it really interesting, really entertaining. Now, for the most part, the overall series is actually really good. It's got a lot of different information in it, and it's got a lot of interesting characters. Now, the series is broken up into arcs, each little series in itself. Now, the first arc of the series revolves around getting hired into Pantasia. Then it moves on into the newcomers battle, where all of the new employees hired with over the last year compete against each other for a 1 million yen prize and trip to France and so on. And they just go and they're competing against each other in there. Then it moves on to the Monaco Cup and then into Yakitate 9, which in the manga is actually 25. All the characters are interesting, even with their own quirks. Now, you have Azuma, who is set out to create the perfect bread to represent Japan. All these countries has their own defining bread. French bread, German bread. And they just have all of this stuff from all over the world. That just has their own breads, but Japan doesn't really have its own bread. So he sets out to create his own rendition of it and to make his own version. Now, he creates his own variations throughout the whole series. Now, the other characters in this series, most notably, you have Kawachi, who is the comic what is that character who is shocked over every single thing, who is sneaky and conniving at the beginning of the series and then kind of blossoms more as the series continues on, striving to become a better baker. Like, he wants to accomplish his dream not only for himself but for his father, who passed away when he was a child, and he just wants to be better overall. Then you have Tsukino. Tsukino is one of the 3 heirs to Pantasia, one of the 3 sisters, which her other half-sisters and everything hate her. And she doesn't really do much baking. She's kind of like more there for story purposes and comedy relief. Yes, comedy relief would be the best way of phrasing it. Then you have Ken, the manager, the big bulky #1 in Japan in making French bread manager, who wears an afro. He comes off as a cold character, but definitely he is loving and concerned about all of his people and wants to help them improve, and might not take a direct approach in telling them anything, but he'll take an indirect approach in helping them reach their goal and teach them something new and let them figure it out on their own. And you have Kuro Yanagi. Throughout most of the series, he's actually a food critic, even though he is a genius baker and just moved ahead, graduated from Harvard and all this. He spends most of his time as a critic and has these over fantastic reactions to the very delicious bread. Then you have Kanmari, who graduated from Harvard at the great age of 16, who always refers to Kuroyanagi as his senpai. One of the major things with him is he set out to develop and study and create his own versions of the yeast and everything, and he just wants to create. He takes a scientific approach in creating everything new. Then you have Kai, who is the samurai of the group. Kai is the hot-blooded, aggressive baker. He carries around a sword inside of his rolling pin everywhere that he goes, and for the most part is never without it, except for just a few moments throughout the series. The music of the series is what you would consider typical on it. Nothing really grandiose that really stands out too much on it. But, I mean, overall, it's actually really decent with that. The voice actors of the series is really good. It fits with the characters very well. Now, in terms of the video quality of the series, it's actually pretty straightforward. It doesn't jump around too much on it, like some of the series do, how it'll be one way, then another way, then another way. For the most part, this one sticks pretty straight, true to the story, try to form. The major thing with this series is the story. The main goal of the story is to set out and create the main bread for Japan. Now, not only are they trying to create the bread to represent Japan, they are set out to help Tsukino in her becoming the heir for Pantasia. Not only does she compete against, other people, but she's got to compete against her sisters. She has her younger sister, Mizuno, who is trying to take over the company, but, she's a little girl, so she don't really have much, thing with that. But the biggest problem is Yukino, who is the Snow Queen, the older sister, the bitch of the series, that you just want to punch in the face every time you see her. She teams up with the owner of St. Pierre, who is the rival company trying to take over Pantasia, and they scheme together to create, the unity and take over the company. But the heroes will not go down without a fight, and as a result, they compete against each other at the end of the series in Yakitate 9, which in the manga was actually Yakitate 25, but for the series they ended up shortening it down to 9 battles instead of 25 battles. And for the most part, the series does really good with following the manga and covering everything, giving everything its due course until the end of the series. I mean, literally the last couple episodes were just so rushed. 69 episodes altogether. Episode 67, I mean, literally, they just did time jumps to move them immediately from one place to another place to another place to another place. And they explained that that's what they were doing because nobody wanted to watch them travel and all this stuff. But they were just cutting it way too short. But then on episode 68, they dedicated a whole freaking episode to a reaction that was just overboard. And then the last episode, I mean, they didn't even set up the battle. I mean, they just went straight to it. They were competing against each other, and you just kind of feel lost throughout it. And honestly, it's still a really good series, and it's still one of my favorites. I mean, the last time I watched it, I kind of like binge watched it in 3 days. So, it's a really, really good series. If possible, buy it. But if not, there's plenty of places you can go online to watch it. Overall, though, it's actually a really good series. So definitely, Yakitate Japan. Make sure to go check it out. And a lot of the breads that they make on there can actually be made, and they actually made them and sold them in Japan for a while. So definitely, check it out because it's actually really interesting. Now, click the like button. Let us know you actually enjoyed this series. Drop a comment down below with what you thought of Yakitate Japan if you have seen it, and give us an idea of what you would like to see us review in the future. And if you haven't already, make sure to click the subscribe button so you can be up to date with all the latest from us here at Tri-Set Otaku.